what's out there.
Hello and welcome to Home Media Minefield presents Let's See What's Out There Plus, a weekly live video stream and podcast focused on Star Wars Andor, which is available to watch on Disney Plus. My name's Keith Isles. I am an independent filmmaker and lifelong enthusiast of film and television, and indeed a lifelong enthusiast of Star Wars as well. If this is your first time here, then welcome. Please do, if you enjoy this sort of thing, consider giving this video a like, a thumbs up there, and having a look at what else we've got on the channel. And if that seems to be your bag, please do subscribe. And if you hit the bell icon, you'll receive notifications as and when new content drops. Now, as you already know from the title, we're looking at the first 3 episodes of Star Wars Andor, which is the new series on Disney Plus streaming. And I am really happy to have a guest with me on this journey tonight. Please, I want to welcome to the podcast good friend, writer and artist, Graham Williams. Hey, Graham.
Hey there, Keith.
How you doing?
All well, thank you very much. Excited to really get into Andor. Yes. Let's do this.
I was feeling a bit rusty there on my intro because I have to say it's been... obviously, we covered Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I've been, covering other, Star Trek properties, and we were doing all of the Marvel properties at one point, but I've fallen slightly behind with that. So the last few Marvel shows, which I know you were very active in, I haven't actually, just time-wise, just haven't had the time to cover on this channel because. Indeed, we've been absolutely spoilt with content, haven't we?
Yeah, just been thrown at us. It's been a challenge to keep up, but they're first world problems.
They are indeed.
Yeah. So I've had to abandon my family, my work, basically, and just be in my PJs, just watching TV to catch up.
God, terrible, hey? Must be awful. It's funny actually when I was looking at all the sort of because. Between all the different streaming services and obviously, like Disney, for example, wanting to have constant content, new stuff all the time, weekly, delivered to us in our homes, in Dolby Vision and Atmos and all of this sort of stuff, which is great. It did sort of occur to me, I was like looking at what's out and about at the moment, and it's almost like, the whole film industry sort of goes in cycles. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's funny because we seem to be like 20 years ago, we were in this real cycle, and it started with Star Wars, actually, of having prequels to everything. You had the Star Wars prequels, and then like on TV, you had things like Enterprise and Smallville, which were sort of prequels to already established content or fiction and stuff. And it's funny because I was looking at all the sort of stuff that's on at the moment, and I'm not actually watching all these shows, but we seem to have prequels to prequels now, which obviously this show is, but we also have there's the Lord of the Rings prequel series on Amazon, and there's a prequel show for Game of Thrones, and I'm sure there's other ones out there as well.
Soul, which me and my wife just finished just last night. We pushed through for the final 3 episodes. Better Call Saul. Another
well, again, in terms of being spoilt for content, I mean, as far as this show goes, let's see what's out there. I would have loved if I'd had time to do a series on Better Call Saul, like a weekly episode. After
we can, if you want to, we can still do the full, in comparison to Breaking Bad,
maybe
a few episodes of that, Keith. So
there's loads of good stuff. There's loads of good stuff and movies, and of course it's BAFTA voting season, and we had Fright Fest not long ago, and there's a hell of a lot going on. But obviously the viewers, if there are any out there, obviously are here today to hear what we've got to say about Andor. And if you are indeed new to the show, we have a sort of loose agenda that we follow. So we usually start off with any sort of news. There seems to be news on a weekly basis now. Some of it scandalous, some of it exciting. But we try and look each week at anything that's transpired that week. But then we do a brief summary of the episode, so it's a spoiler-filled conversation that we're going to have. So obviously we'll be spoiling the first 3 here, which have dropped. Then we look at some sort of production credits, some of the people involved, not necessarily on screen, but behind the camera, and what they've worked on and what their contributions are. We look at references and connections and Easter eggs to other Star Wars, as well as other works of fiction, really. Then we have a little bit of our speculation, where we think the show might be going. Then we go through our thoughts and nitpicks. That's where we really have the conversation. And then there's an opportunity to give feedback and get in touch. If anybody out there does want to get in touch, we'll give you ways and means to do that. So that's kind of how we run this, but it's all a bit of fun. I have to say, I don't know about you, Graham. One of my rules for when I do this show is I try and avoid, until I've put this out, reviews of the show, because I don't want to be too swayed by other opinions out there, and I don't know. So at the moment, I don't know whether generally the response to this is extremely positive or whether it's negative. I mean, I know there will be people who love it and there will be haters out there, because that's just the way of everything and the internet. But I don't know. Have you done much?
No, just my MO is to not delve deep first before release of detailed trailers or TV spots. I try and just see a teaser and something gets me. Again, so much content out there, right? And we always dig into and always anticipate anything Star Wars, Star Trek, or whatever coming out. But then after the drop, after it's streamed, I'll have a chat maybe with the missus, or at the moment it's just me watching it, so it's me talking to myself a lot at home here, right? But no, that's absolutely not, because I really want to watch what and make my own mind up, and then discuss with you and discuss with others. The reviews are the reviews, right? They're all subjective, as with me and you. We could have discussions later on where we disagree where things are going, how things are, all the better. But in general, it's always nice, always great to have like-minded individuals, or you have something from a different perspective, possibly. But I'm not on the socials commenting all the time and getting into the argument, so that is of no interest to me. I'll make my mind up when I see, read, or experience anything, story-wise or art.
Yep, that's good. We're already on the same page, which is good. So anyway, I'll move forward. I'll try and stay on target here. So Graham, I know you're going to do a little spoiler-filled sort of synopsis, just to remind anyone that might be catching this later what happened in those episodes. So you may, this section's called "You May Fire When Ready," but obviously because this is 5 years before, you actually won't be able to fire it for another 5 years, will you? But
let's talk about that.
So you may fire when ready.
So we have a 3-episode drop, as Keith mentioned, and a lot to unpack. I'll do my best to be brief. So Episode 1, Casa. We open with a mystery in the rain, but this isn't LA in the 1920s. It's Molana 1, Priox Molana Corporate Zone. Just remember that name. We follow a bearded, haunted man through the rain. If you haven't watched Rogue One, then you don't know who this character is. What is revealed to us is that he's from the planet Canary and is looking for his sister. But if you know Rogue One and have watched at least one trailer for the TV series, then we all know this is Cassian Andor, the titular hero of the story. And this is his backstory and his mystery to solve. 2 murders at the hand of Cassian set the momentum of this story going, and they won't be the last, not with the spectre of the Empire in our midst. Cassian runs from Molana 1 and returns to his current home, the planet Ferrix, a giant scrapyard come recycling centre for spaceships, a blue-collar, grimy, worn place where its populace have their own ways of doing things. This has none of the spit and shine of the Empire. Enter our first cute beat-up Star Wars droid, nicknamed B. A flashback through Cassian's dream at first takes us to a forested world and an indigenous tribe of children and young adults excitedly witnessing the crash landing of a spaceship. The name Casa is used to segue between Cassian himself and the planet Canary flashback. Back in the waking world of Ferrix, Cassian frantically bargains, negotiates, or threatens everyone he meets in an effort to cover his tracks and prepare to be on the run. This way, we are introduced to the characters of Ferrix and their way of life as junkers. This is not the first time Cassian has done this, but everyone in the community is in fact expecting him to behave like this. Cassian's closest friends and allies are Bix and Brasso. Bix, a strong-willed young woman and owner of one scrapyard, is pleaded with by Cassian to contact her mystery buyer for his MacGuffin. Brasso, on the other hand, is an older male human, a scrap worker whose working day is measured between the amusingly rung morning bells and evening bells. Brasso is asked to cover Cassian's whereabouts the previous night. Skipping back to Molana 1 again, this time to the corporate security HQ, Deputy Inspector Cyril Khan pushes for an investigation of the 2 murders, for they were corporate security men after all. Despite efforts from the Deputy Inspector's world-weary chief to wriggle them out of an investigation, the overkeen, uptight Deputy Inspector, very much in the mould of an Imperial officer, disagrees. With the chief away at an Imperial conference, Deputy Inspector takes charge anyway. A bulletin is sent. The hunt for the murderer begins. Flashbacks to Canary now established. We end the episode, but with no cliffhanger. Episode 2, That Would Be Me. The world building continues, and so too the flashbacks that are interspersed with the present day. In this episode, the pacing of the story remains. Layers are added with each scene. We cut back and forth with some notable scenes and character intros. Tim Carlo, who we'd met briefly in episode 1, a colleague and jealous lover of Bix's on Ferrix, sneaks behind her back, finds the Molana 1 security bulletin, puts 2 and 2 together and makes a call later. A lover scorned is a dangerous foe. Marva, an aging mother figure for Cassian, provides more exposition and backstory while Cassian rummages around the dwelling. B is there. This is Cassian's home. Marva is an Andor. She too worries after him and ekes out a sort of confession from him. He messed up. Tim's information to the bulletin on the Canary Mail on Ferrix focuses the Molana Security Forces investigation there. Enter a direct, passionate corporate security sergeant, Linus Mosk. His speech, practically military in its content and clip delivery, pleases the Deputy Inspector. To Ferrix they go. Continuing with the Canary flashbacks, Casa has left his sister behind at their camp. The kids trek to the crashed ship, takes them past a gigantic, abandoned open mine. A pause for reflection from Cassian ties into the story of a mining disaster there. And so, to the crashed ship. Tragedy strikes. The leader of the tribe is killed by a survivor of the crash with a blaster. Against blaster fire, the kids make their immediate revenge and kill the murderer with blow darts. Casa remains at the ship. And finally, enter Stellan Skarsgård at Ferrix, a bleached blonde mystery man who parks his spaceship out of sight and keeps his lips sealed, even when forced into conversation by a travelling salesman on the flying bus into town. We end on episode 2, again with no cliffhanger, but with Cassian marching purposefully towards camera. Episode 3, Reckoning. All storylines now converge with all our present-day players on Ferrix. Cassian ties up loose ends, says his goodbyes. Stellan Skarsgård, confirmed as Bix's mystery buyer, heads to meet Cassian. The Molano 1 corporate security troop, in reality led by the more able Sergeant Moss, gets stuck into their job, intimidating the locals, showing their brute strength, and on the hunt. The flashbacks to Canary intensify whilst also blending with present-day events. We see the introduction of Casa to Marva and a cleaner, stronger, less beat-up B. Marva herself was once a junker, a scavenger too. They escape an Imperial ship with Marva taking Cassian with her. Present-day Cassian and Stellan meet to talk in a warehouse location. There is a hint for Stellan in Cassian's words of rebellion. Stellan doesn't care for the MacGuffin Cassian is selling. He now has confirmed that he has found an ally, a young someone he can recruit to the cause against the Empire. Then there's talk of Cassian's father. The security troop are in full intimidation mode, even to the point of killing Tim. But the local Ferrixians retaliate with their own act of intimidation. Metal objects are banged and clattered. A basic, noisy warning system which Cassian duly acts on. The noise intensifies and spreads. Ambushed in the warehouse, Stellan matches his strong words with strong action. An explosion starts one of many blaster fights. The MacGuffin pulls Cassian back, but he must leave it behind to escape with his life. Marva provides words of warning and a narrative to the sequence. This is what a reckoning sounds like, but it's when the noise ends, that's when they need to fret. The noise duly stops. Panicked, the security troop get their butts kicked, and not just from Stellan and Cassian, but from the locals, most notably Cassian's friend Brasso. Cue some close shaves in the escape, including a Star Wars-esque money shot of Cassian and Stellan on a speeder bike out of town to Stellan's hidden spaceship. End of episode 3, and the first reel.
Very well done. I can tell you're a writer, Graham. No, you did a really good job there, because there was a lot. I mean, this really felt like a movie, didn't it? I don't know, but did you watch all 3 episodes in one go?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, so
and again, I'm abandoning my family, but they love me dearly and allowing this for us, Keith.
Yeah. Now, it was like a sort of, I don't know, 100-minute movie or whatever it felt like, didn't it?
It felt like, again, that last reel, it was what I just said there, then that just felt like, okay, everything is layered, everything is out there for us now.
Yeah.
But I know we'll speak about that a bit more later on too.
We certainly will. But before we do, it is time for us to thank the maker. Alrighty, so a totally different production crew working here on Andor than on the other Star Wars shows that we've had. Although not all of them completely new to Star Wars. Starting, of course, with the showrunner for the series creator, the writer and producer, Tony Gilroy, an American filmmaker. From a family of filmmakers, in fact. Dan, John, his brothers are also make films and are involved in some of these films. He's well known for winning an Academy Award for writing Michael Clayton, which was a really great film. I don't know whether you saw that with George Clooney a few years back. He's also well known for being the screenwriter on the Bourne series of films starring Matt Damon. So again, done a lot of work with those sort of things. Also was a producer on the TV show House of Cards. And of course, famously came in and did rewrites and directed several sequences of the Star Wars story Rogue One in 2016. So, as I said, has been largely involved in Star Wars previous to this, and again got kind of hired in when the original showrunner and producer for this series decided to split ways with Lucasfilm. They went back to Tony Gilroy, and Tony indeed reshaped the series, has written many of the episodes for this series, and continues to show run on it. So I think a great job there. No doubt we will talk a lot more about Tony Gilroy and his sort of relationship with Star Wars as we go through, this series, as it were. These first 3 episodes were directed by Toby Haynes. Toby, again, has directed some really good stuff over the years. He directed a Black Mirror episode called the USS Callister, which was quite a famous episode there. He's also directed episodes, well, going way back. He started with Hollyoaks back in 2007, and he moved on. He did things like Spooks, Code 9, Being Human, 5 Days. He's done several episodes of Doctor Who. He did a really good episode of Sherlock called The Reichenbach Fall, which was a great episode. He also directed an episode of Wallander, The Musketeers, as I've already mentioned, Black Mirror, Utopia, and has now moved on to Andor, and I think is doing a great job with that so far. I'm really liking the direction here. And then, of course, I said we don't really speak about people in front of the camera, more behind, but he is actually an executive producer on the show as well. So Diego Luna, who I think is great in this. I loved it when he played this character in Star Wars Rogue One. Obviously, he has done a great deal of films over the past years, and it's good to have him back for this. Just a bit of information, he is a Mexican actor, and as I said, he's done things like Open Range, Milk, Dirty Dancing, Havana Nights, The Terminal, Berlin, I Love You. To name just a few of his credits there. And as I said, it's great that he's able to come back and flesh out this character of Cassian Andor, as well as serve as the executive producer on the show. So, and we will talk about more people from behind the camera in future installments of this. All right. So it's all been quite serious so far, hasn't it? A little bit like the show, maybe.
So, yeah.
But this is now a bit where we just have a little bit of fun. As I said, there are channels out there on YouTube that devote themselves to this sort of thing, and I usually watch them after I've put my episode out and realize that I missed so many things. But it's time for a drink and some Bantha Milk Blue. Right.
Sorry about that. I had some green Bantha milk earlier on. It must be a bad batch.
There you go. Absolutely. Well, ironically enough, the clue is kind of in the title, because this show is not, and I think intentionally so, is not as packed with Easter eggs and references and crossovers as many of the Star Wars shows have been so far. But I couldn't find a still from the actual episode, but there was, I don't know whether you spotted, he did have a Bantha toy in his bedroom, like a cuddly Bantha.
Right, you've taken my top one.
So I thought that was quite funny. I mean, this is a show where, well, so far, for once, there is no mention of Tatooine or no visiting Tatooine. And I do laugh at the whole Tatooine thing, because I remember when 3PO in A New Hope asked Luke which planet he's on, Luke's response is, well, if there's a bright sun under the universe, you are on the planet that is farthest from. But it does seem to be the planet that everybody comes to the most in the Star
I have a
Wars.
theory about that. I will share after you finish this section there, Keith.
Fair enough, fair enough. But yeah, but there you go. He does indeed have a cuddly bantha, which I suppose makes sense because, you know, here on Earth we have cuddly dogs and elephants and, you know, creatures, don't we? So why not? Why the hell not? The other thing was a couple of verbal references, or a verbal reference at least. They mention the planet Wobani, and Wobani was the planet in Rogue One where Jen Erso was actually captive at the beginning, and the whole joke about that name is it's actually an anagram of Obi-Wan. So that was, as I said, mentioned in the show as well. Sorry, before, because I'm rabbiting here. Any that you want to jump in on, Graham, that you've got before I carry on?
Not an Easter egg, this one, but I did note that the fellow I mentioned, Tim Carlo, played by James McArdle, has already been in Star Wars, modern Star Wars as well.
Oh, really?
So we've now got a la Star Trek, where you have one actor playing multiple characters then. So yeah, so I noted, because I was just going through IMDb, so thanks to them as usual. So yeah, so James McArdle actually, so he played Tim Carlo, the love interest of Bix here, but also the one who rats out
Yes.
Cassian.
Yeah.
He played a character called Niv Lek in The Force Awakens. He was one of the pilots when they're coming in for the attack near the end. So, you know, it's a blink and you miss it. In that instant, I can't remember the movie that well, other than they obviously pulled their punch and went back to A New Hope and didn't give us anything new. That's one of the time. But yeah, so you go. James McArdle's played two characters now in
Some actors get all the luck, don't they? You just got to get in one of them. But fine. One of the other things, and I might have my facts slightly wrong here, and I was scrambling to find a photograph online, and what I've got up there on the screen was about the best thing I could find. But I'm sure we'll get into this. But the ship that crash lands on Canary is a Republic ship, right? Because they mention that. But it's interesting that I believe the patches on the uniforms that the officers had on that ship and the crew was in fact the same patch that Galen Erso has in Rogue One, which makes them part of the science division of the. I believe. I mean, this bit's still a little bit of a mystery. This whole sort of subplot that's going on there, and I'm sure we'll find out more in future episodes. But I think the patch, and interestingly, as you can see, there's a photo I got online that's actually I've not read that article, but if you can see there, it's circling the patch as being something relevant. And as I said, I think the logo is the same as the Republic Scientific Division that Galen Erso was part of before the the Empire approached him in Rogue, or years before Rogue One.
Wow, that's mega nerdy of you there, Keith.
Well, it is a bit nerdy.
You're really digging into this one, aren't you?
Well, I like, I mean, with me, uniforms and rank patches and mission badges and all of that sort of thing. Hence why I love Star Trek. All that stuff, along with the weapons and tech and all of that stuff is my jelly. So yeah, yes, it's kind of. And talking of ships, I thought that the drop ships that they come down to the planet on were quite similar to the drop ships in the Clone Wars in terms of design. I thought there was definitely some design aesthetic similarities. Obviously, the drop ships they use in this are quite a bit smaller than the ones used in the Clone Wars, but but in terms of setting in the world of Star Wars, I sort of felt that was kind of not necessarily an Easter egg, but a design reference. Have you got any others, Greg?
Yeah, I'm sure I saw. We're in pretty much a gigantic scrapyard here, so there's just loads of ships about it that must be there. But I'm sure I saw the hover ship. I can't remember what they're called now. So in Hoth, Empire Strikes Back, we see them for the first time. They're the kind of almost like the Battlestar Galactica ones, the flat ones there, that buzz around the AT-ATs. Obviously, you can tell.
Like the air speeders. The air speeders, they turn into snow speeders in Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, so the first scene where we see Cassian in the scrapyard itself, rather than just around the warehouses and all the units there, where he's out, and that buddy of his, as most are, pissed off with him because he's letting them down all the time. I'm sure I saw one as we were we were craning in, we were just pulling into that scene there. And I bet you people are going to spot a hell of a lot more. Because it's if you've got a Republic there, you've got the Imperial ships and all sorts as well. If I was a creator there, I'd throw all sorts in just as Easter eggs.
Yeah,
but not any ones that on a quick view that I could really see.
Yeah. I think that was the T-47 airspeeder because they used them in Obi-Wan Kenobi as well.
There
one of
you
the episodes. So that's the only reason.
I can spot one in the scrapyard. I just don't know its name.
There you go. Well, I mean, one here, and I think this is quite interesting. This is why I put this up. Was obviously we've got B2 EMO or B2 emo as people are referring to him as, which I'm sure is intentional, but obviously one of the things I like, we've not seen this style of droid before, and in the non-flashback stuff, in the sort of main timeline of the show, it's quite a beaten up droid. It, as a result, its processors cause it to have a bit of a stammer. And some of the outer casing and whatever's a bit beat up. And it's funny because again, about things being circular and coming full circle, one of the other films that as a kid, along with Star Wars, I was a massive fan of when I was a kid was The Black Hole. I had action figures and all that sort of thing for that as well, like I did with Star Wars, and the annual with the comic book adaptation and all that kind of thing. And what I think is quite funny is The Black Hole was, if you like, Disney's, long before Disney owned Star Wars. The Black Hole was Disney's response to Star Wars, because all the studios were trying to find their sort of science fiction space opera in the wake of the success that Star Wars had back in the late 70s. And I think The Black Hole was 1979, something like that. And basically, it was originally going to be a disaster movie in space, like a family-friendly disaster movie in space with a little bit of a haunted house element to it as well. And what happened, because of the success of Star Wars, they decided to add robot companions and lasers and all of that sort of thing to sort of, if you like, get that adventure feel that Star Wars had. And there was a character in that called Old Bob, which was voiced by Slim Pickens. And he was kind of like a beat up version of Vincent, who was the main robot in that, which was voiced by Roddy McDowall. And I used to have, they didn't do a figure of Old Bob, but they did do a figure of Vincent back in the day. And I couldn't help, it's just me, but I sort of wondered whether this is a little bit of a reference to that. As I said, ironically,
moves and mannerisms were there. The head popping up.
Yeah, exactly.
and
exactly.
then being shy and then going back into almost a shell, definitely. So you're saying then you had Vincent, but then you beat up Vincent to look like old Bob?
Oh, do you know that was one of the plans in my head, but I don't think that would really work. But yeah, no, exactly. I didn't want to. I used to look after my toys because if I broke them, they wouldn't get replaced. So there you go.
No.
Another good good virtue that my parents taught me. But but yeah, so but yeah, I don't know. I just kind of, maybe it was just me, but I was, because I'm a fan of that film, I couldn't help see a little bit of old Bob in B2, and I liked it, you know. And as I said, I think it's quite ironic that Disney have come full circle, as it were, because the black hole was their response to Star Wars, and now obviously they own Star Wars, and maybe they're putting references in for that. And then, of course, the other thing I had there in the picture, which I'll bring back up, was, again, I couldn't find a shot from the actual episode, but I'm sure the speeder bike or the swoop, whichever it's supposed to be, that they get away at the end of the last episode is very similar to the Imperial speeder bikes that the biker scouts have in Return of the Jedi. Very similar design, anyway. So
yeah, but they had the sound design absolutely spot on in this as well. Makes me think it's exactly the same type of model.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Star Wars isn't just what you see, so what you hear, right?
Oh, totally. And
so that one dovetails nicely into another one, and it may not be, but it was just one that just, because it's such a serious 3 episodes, and the only comic relief for me was the bell ringer I mentioned in my synopsis earlier on, the amusing morning bells and evening bells. But
yes,
this fella has to climb a tower. It's just a jog memory. He's just to climb a tower in the morning. He's in orange overalls, big scraggly beard, and he's there. He gets pumped up, 2 hammers, massive, almost like a division bell, really, just as a massive piece of metal. But
which apparently is made of Beskar. And the only it says that in the audio, sorry, in the not audio description, but the
closed caption.
Yeah, and I'll mention, we'll get into later why I put those on, because I don't usually, but there was a reason, which is a minor nitpick that I have, but there was a reason. But yes, it said that's Beskar, which is the same as obviously the Mandalorian's armor, right?
There we go. Absolutely, yeah. I didn't know that. So that's an Easter egg within a bit of fun as well. Because if you notice, when he gets himself pumped up, for me, he does the noises of lightsabers. Who's like, and then he starts, and I was like, and I went back to it again earlier. I went, yeah, I didn't dream that he does that. As you were, I had a tube in my hand the other day, and that instantly became a lightsaber. So I have a great affiliation with the bell ringer.
So that's interesting, because I was thinking, this is like the first Star Wars with no lightsabers and no the Force, in it. But hey, maybe this was their way of getting lightsabers in there in a manner of speak. From a certain,
I just hope the actor and the director just had a quiet word just before shooting and just said, let's have a bit of a laugh with this one.
Yeah, I did like that sort of cultural, because obviously, they live in a world where the technology's there that bell could ring automatically, or but I like the fact that it's part of their culture that they do that.
Absolutely.
And again, it's nice to see a new culture, a different culture again, which is
in every way, absolutely,
which is awesome. Okay, one thing I want to touch on, I'm going to bring this up. You'll probably roll your eyes because you'll be like, typical Keith with his timelines and his chronology and all of this sort of thing.
I have to get close to this one.
I know. Sorry, I couldn't. This is the official Disney slide on it.
Honestly, they've made so much.
Yeah.
And this season doesn't even include the novels either. No comics, right? This is just...
Well, here's the thing I wanted to talk about. and I do want to spend a little moment on this. So I thought it was very interesting that literally the first shot we get in this after we got the the Andor logo, which obviously has like the sort of rebel logo as part of it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But we have this bit in the rain on the planet, which the name of that planet escapes me, but you did say in your very good synopsis what it was, and I've completely
Molana 1.
Thank you. Right, but they put up BB5 BBY or BBY5.
Yeah, I didn't say that because it was already a mouthful, and I just had to get on.
Well, this is interesting because the reason I want to sort of talk about this is because, to my knowledge, that is the first time that they've ever put a date up in Star Wars in this way.
Oh, is that what it is?
The whole BBY stands for before the Battle of Yavin. So, in other words, the end of New Hope, or the end of Episode 4, or the end of Star Wars, whatever whatever people like to call it these days, right? Which, of course, is where Rogue One takes place right before that, right before the events of that film, and it's something that in the expanded universe, in the novels, in the reference books, like I've got the Rogue One Ultimate Visual Guide and whatever here behind me, in all of those things, they've always used that. They've always used the Battle of Yavin as being the sort of almost like the birth of Christ, the year zero, as it were, and everything's either before or after that. Okay. But what I think's interesting is of course Rogue One was the first film to basically put titles up, with the planet names and all of this sort of thing, which obviously they're mirroring that here. They're keeping that aesthetic here. But I just think it's interesting that they've specifically set this at a point in time now, which is, as I said, 5 years before the events of Rogue One. My understanding is we got 12 episodes in this season, so we got another 9 to go, and then there's also a second season, and I believe that it's going to bridge right up to the events of Rogue One or minutes before. I think it's quite interesting actually, because of course Rogue One was made 6 years ago and this is supposed to be set 5 years before that, right? So Diego Luna's actually playing someone that's supposed to be, he's 10 years older than the character's supposed to be now, if you know what I mean, because 5 years have passed.
So that happens, once you start prequeling.
Yes.
The creators really do have to get creative. They really have to think, listen, with spoilers here, but if you've watched Better Call Saul, I was wondering how the hell are they going to do this, and they did it beautifully, because we live in a modern world now where there's makeup, hair, there's also CGI if you really want to lean in there, but actually you've got lighting techniques, camera techniques too that can do this. But then don't forget with Cassian Andor as well. He's actually a bit of a scruff at the moment, and when we meet him in Rogue One, he at least he's had a bit of a shave. He's still a scruff, but they can hide a lot with just some hair colouring and keeping his hair long. Now I have no experience of this, of course, but I'm sure if I took some felt tip pens and coloured in my silver fox chin hair, then I definitely look at least 5 years, 6 years.
I mean, not to get off topic here, but one of the things that I did notice with Better Call Saul is they didn't actually. It's one of the things they kind of did right, I think, is they didn't really worry too much about that. Like they didn't go with a load of heavy makeup or
the writing, and the storytelling.
Exactly, they focused purely on the characters and the story, and the fact that the actors were clearly way older than they were supposed to be by that point just didn't really matter, and that was good. But yes, you're right. It's one of those prequel things. But yeah, I believe, as I said, unless I'm mistaken here, I believe this is the first time that they've actually put a Star Wars date up on the screen like that. And I thought it was quite cool that we know exactly sort of where and when this is set in terms of the main narrative. Little bit which we'll get into, I'm sure, when we really get talking about it, but a little bit more confusing of the flashback to Canary with young Cassie, as he's known there. Is it Cassie or Casa? Casa. Young Casa there. I'm a little unclear as to, he says in Rogue One that he's been fighting the battle since he was 6 years old, but I'm assuming that was events before we pick up in this.
You may even get that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But anyway, sorry, I'm babbling on about that. Before we go, the next thing is, well, either never tell me the odds or I've got a bad feeling about this, depending on your point of view. So, Graham, this is, again, just a bit of fun. Don't shoot us, online if we're wrong or if we have missed something or whatever. But it's just where we have a little bit of fun about, speculation, where we think theorizing where we think it might be going, etc. So, do you have anything in particular, or are you just enjoying the ride and don't really care?
Usually at this point in our live casts and our podcast, Keith, I usually go, I'm fine, I'm good if I'm enjoying something. But with this one, we've already had the trailer, so we know there's more to come. We know there's going to be an expansion of the story. We've had this beginning to a story. We've had this intro, this epic intro here, but Cassian Andor now is leaving the planet, so there's a hell of a lot of places we can go and things to happen. But as you just said, we've got 5 years to cover. We've already seen where he is in 5 years' time. Okay,
yeah.
So we know that. We also know his death.
Mm-hmm.
We know that. We know who he becomes. We don't quite just know him yet. He's a character that people may think they understand him, or basically you've seen from them they tolerate him, but we've now got this mentor figure. His name not given just yet. He's still a mystery. That's why I was calling him Stellan earlier on, jokingly, because we still haven't quite got the name. Yes, IMDb says that, but in where we are, we haven't. But we will have Mon Mothma coming along. We will probably also have many of the characters that are linked to Rogue One and into the first part of the Star Wars saga, our beloved Star Wars from 1977. So they'll creep in as well. But if you want to speculate, my speculation on the next episode is I think it will crack open and it'll be more expansive. We'll get to know more about the galaxy, and we'll start to delve not just into Cassian but also into Stellan and actually get his name said or pronounced to us. Now, I think in the next episode it'll expand, but these guys, they may hold their cards close to their chest and just focus on Andor for a few, and then. But I don't think now that we've had a lot of his story, some of his backstory, I think it's gonna crack open. I won't be disappointed either way, but it's just where my gut feel is, because then we really have the 9 episodes then to, there's going to be more threads to come, and then obviously tie them back in there as well, you see. And the whole thing about his past, again, just through exposition dialogue in drama in the warehouse in episode 3, a father is mentioned of Cassian's, which obviously angers him. We didn't see one adult. I had it in my initial synopsis first, and I cut it out for brevity. But so we have a mention of a father hanged. So actually, the fighting from 6 years old could come up. I'm not saying in the next episode, but definitely coming up, we will see more of. Maybe not Casa. We may go back to Canary itself. Don't forget the initial mystery. The LA detective noir, All the Rain. What's Cassian doing on Molana Prime, looking for his sister? His sister's still out there. All right. So we're going to have, again, not sure about next episode, but already we've got hints through all this. Again, it was mostly dialogue, but we didn't get any English dialogue for us who watched it as created, or as Disney have created it for us on Canary. There's another language, no subtitles. Okay, they're treating us with intelligence here. We're an audience that just sees what's happening. We don't necessarily need to know exactly what's needed. So there's probably a Canary flashback series of. We've got the mining disaster. They may leave it at that.
Yeah.
Why aren't there adults? Why aren't we seeing adults? Question. And knowing, with Tony Gilroy, you mentioned Michael Clayton and others earlier on, massive fan of his work. There's intelligence there already. I can't believe for 1 second they'll start to pay only fan service. I have a feeling we're in good hands here. There's going to be fan service. You know it. You can't have such a behemoth of Star Wars. We have it with MCU. There's a lot of fan service paid, sometimes gratingly. But I feel that they're going to stick to this and just tell this story. Because don't forget, this is also quite a hard sell for us, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get too much into what we talk about later when we really get into our thoughts and whatever on it. But one of the things I will say on that point is, yes, this is a prequel. Yes, we absolutely know where Cassian Andor ends up. We, of course, also know where Mon Mothma ends up as well. But the good thing here is, other than that, all of these characters, all these people we're being introduced to in this show so far aren't connected to anyone. I mean, this is the beauty with setting it outside of, what's established, even though it's kind of very different, which again we'll come on to. I mean, one of the things I did want to mention with the slide is the fact that this is kind of concurrent with the Star Wars Rebels, the animated series that took place at approximately the same time as this, obviously in a different part of the galaxy with different characters that are resistance characters that end up joining to form the rebellion. And there are a couple of Easter eggs in Rogue One that reference Rebels. So, I don't know whether there'll be any crossover with that, but there is an opportunity over this 2-season, over this 5-year period in the story here. Obviously, the Stellan Skarsgård character looks like he's going to be, heavily involved in the formation of the Rebel Alliance. We know that Mon Mothma is. We also know that Bail Organa, as played by Jimmy Smits, who obviously appeared in Obi-Wan Kenobi as well. And of course, Rogue One. He will be somewhat involved in that as well. So there's a possibility we may see him. But it also then makes you wonder, well, does that mean Krennic's going to appear in it? Does that mean Tarkin and Vader are going to appear in it? I think I've got my feeling is maybe not actually, just because of the way, Tony Gilroy is steering this ship, and for the fact that unlike Favreau and Filoni and perhaps Deborah Chow and whatever, Gilroy is not a diehard Star Wars fan. You know, it's not that he doesn't like Star Wars, because he wouldn't be involved in it, right? But he's a storyteller. He's a filmmaker. He's a writer. He's a storyteller, and I think with him, it'll be about that first, rather than nods and Easter eggs and cool stuff that the fans want to see. And you know, if there is any criticism to which I think, you know, Favreau and Chow and Filoni and whatever have done great jobs, but you know, a lot of people said there's a lot of fan servicey, Easter eggy waving going on in there, and that's because they, like us, you know, they're sort of our generation, and they grew up loving Star Wars in the way that we did, right? Tony Gilroy's a little bit older, and sort of admitted that he wasn't necessarily a big Star Wars fanboy, even though he had appreciation for it. So anyway, yeah, I'm probably getting a bit off topic.
No, fine. No, and I think I actually agree with you there, Keith, that with the big players, especially the Star Wars big players as well, Cassian Andor doesn't need to be meeting Darth Vader. Where they've said, you know, we're mid-rim, not outer, which Mandalorian is. But even there, we're at a lower part of the echelon or of the hierarchy, aren't we? We may have Mon Mothma, but all that politics, and this, you know, we're willing to this may become a bit of a spy thriller. Well, spies never actually see the top dogs. They never see the prime ministers, the leaders, in this instance, the emperor, you know, his main henchman, Lord Vader, everyone else. So yeah, because we're down a level, really, aren't we? So if it goes that way, then I think that'll silence a few people as well. Because for me, it was literally a case of, what are they going to do? Because it was a prequel of a prequel, but actually they've got such fertile ground here and have already started that. So, you know, not including this fella for once, actually not a bad thing, right?
All right. Now, and I think that's the perfect segue into looking at this from a certain point of view. Even though I've still got a lightsaber noise in there, but
it's Star Wars, you can't not.
Star Wars with no lightsabers. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, I mean, I think this is the perfect point we've got to now, for us to sort of dig into the episode and start talking about what we really, you know, thought about it, what worked, what didn't, and that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, feel free, Graham, to go first, because as usual, I've got lots to say.
Okay. Well, I think from what I've said already, because I've been absolutely dying to chat and get into this and learn more, because obviously I don't pick up on everything, and I'm not uber geeking the details of Star Wars. Star Wars is always was a feeling for me. You know, I don't memorize the numbers or anything else like that. I'm not built like that. Many fans are. So it's always been about, you know, the feeling of it, the emotion of it, just the spectacle of it. But here, what we've got is not the spectacle of it. We've got a different set of characters, stories, places. You know, Ferrix itself is. I thought at once that this isn't Star Wars, meaning it didn't look or feel. I said in the synopsis, you don't have the spit and shine, spit and polish of the Empire here, because it's all dirty, grungy, scrap. It's a scrapyard, etc. And you've got even an indigenous people as well. They use blow darts. So from all of that, and the three together, I understand now totally why they put these three together, because on the basis of just the first episode, I think some people would have switched off, because it's not how the story is being told. It isn't a spectacle. It's telling a story intelligently, and I'm absolutely loving it. I think Tony Gilroy's writing is superb. I I think that Toby Haynes, who I hadn't heard of, but actually I have seen his work. I've seen the Black Mirror episode. I've seen the Reckon Back Fall episode as well of Sherlock. So actually, these guys with pedigree have come together, and for me, they're producing something really special. And there are hints to Star Wars, and we know it's in the galaxy, but actually, this is almost the most un-Star Wars anything that we've seen live action, at least. And going back to Rogue One recently as well, that one was firmly planted. You had no, even if you didn't know some of the ships or the characters or the settings, you knew that was a Star Wars. It started off with the crawl. It had everything there. This doesn't, and even with that, I'm absolutely living it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I've made no secret that Rogue One was my favorite film of the Disney Star Wars era by a long way. I love that film, and I think it's great that they've gone back to expand on one of the many interesting characters in that show, which in that film, and sort of flesh this out in the way that they have. What I think is interesting, it's almost like, this sort of feels like the Star Wars for the fans that grew up with the original trilogy that are now of a certain age, because many have argued that Star Wars has always been, even George Lucas has said it when he was talking about the prequels, for kids. And obviously we were kids when it came out, and it appealed to us, and we had action figures and read comics and, all of this sort of stuff.
Still do.
This is really kind of a crime thriller, but set in the Star Wars universe. And which is a massive universe, which again we've often criticized, that there's this galaxy of 1,000 worlds or 1,000 systems in this galaxy, where everyone goes to Tatooine and knows the Skywalkers, and it all feels very small. So the fact that they've broadened this out, and okay, we've got no lightsabers and no Jedi and no that sort of thing, but it kind of works, and it's really the other thing that I think is very different here. And this is, I'm in agreement with you when you say it's very un-Star Wars in many respects. Is Star Wars was always about good and evil. It was this mystical fantasy. That's what made it different to Star Trek. It was kind of mystical fantasy meets science fiction, and it was kind of a blend of the two. And it was always about good and evil, the light side and the dark side of the Force. And you had like Luke Skywalker, who was, a really good, naive to start with, but, a hero, a real hero on the hero's journey, quite literally. But what I like here is you've got morally ambiguous characters, because, Cassian Andor, both in Rogue One and in this, one of the first scenes in it is him essentially shooting someone in cold blood. He does it to a contact, at the beginning of Rogue One, and which nobody expected. It was like, oh wow, who's this guy? He's edgy, and he's obviously sort of forced to do that here. And there are those who could argue, well, this isn't a, if you've got young kids watching this, you've got a character here who is morally ambiguous. Starts off in a red light district. I mean, that opening was kind of like what Soho or Amsterdam was, like 30 years ago or whatever. You know what I mean?
Indeed, especially the rain.
Yeah. You,
But I'm gonna contradict myself slightly here
okay.
in the difference. You're
I do
right.
it all the time.
So
Don't
it was
worry.
just a theory I came up with because I was rummaging through and watching bits that yeah, what we're watching is a grown-up Star Wars. Yes, yes, there's moral ambiguity, but actually there's parallels to Star Wars in two characters. So that's Luthen, who will get his name off, which is Stellan's, and then there's Cassian himself. So what you've got here is a young guy who's on this planet, wants more, doesn't really know what he wants.
Yeah.
It then meets an older, wiser mentor. They then are forced together. The older mentor already sees something in the younger man, and they both, at the end here, go off planet. Okay, to other adventures. Now, the mentor figure here, that is him. Maybe more ambiguous. So for me, you've got a Luke and Obi-Wan dynamic already going
Yes.
there. All right, you got the past, you've got the family tragedies there that Cassian knows or doesn't. Luke was unaware, but don't forget he was also with his aunt and uncle. Cassian isn't living, hasn't been brought up by his parents. It's with Martha there as well. He then abruptly leaves his friends and his family, and we don't know what's going to happen to them. There may be repercussions, as we did have with Star Wars 2. So that there's a few parallels just
Yeah.
hinted there. Now maybe I'm doing
He's got a
reading a lot into them.
a cute robot companion.
Absolutely,
It's
one
all
that
there.
helps us, doesn't drive the story necessarily, but has helped us and has also been not so reliable. Has been a bit of a liability to our young hero.
Yes. Yeah. So in terms of the hero's journey, you're absolutely right. Even though this is tonally very different, almost more akin to Blade Runner than Star Wars in some respects. But in terms of the you're right. The basic setup here is a young a young person with a more idealistic outlook than the world he lives in. Yeah, gets himself into that situation, and meets a older, wiser mentor and leaves the planet. Then it's absolutely that, isn't it?
Yeah, and we'll see if it goes that way, or that was just hints at where we're at. But for me personally, where else would it go? How else are you going to get Cassian off world and into their hands? So again, let's see how we go to see whether we read too much into it. But I'm sticking to my theory there, most definitely.
No, I like it. I like it. And as well as the sort of crime thriller, we've got a bit of a with the backstory. We've got a bit of a mystery
Yeah.
going on as well, a bit of a mystery storyline, which again I love that sort of thing. With the Republic ship and the chemicals that were involved with that, and then obviously did all the adults get wiped out in some sort of mining accident on that planet, and what were they mining for? Was it something that was going to would later be used to create ships of the fleet?
Yeah,
Who knows? Was
absolutely.
was the chemical was the chemical something from a chemical warfare perspective? Obviously, the Death Star is a weapon of mass destruction. So were they working on something that would could poison an entire population? Is that what happened to Casa's real family? The other thing is, trying to remember the character name here. Hold on, bear with me. Caller. Where are we? I like to be correct with these things, but the wonderful Fiona Shaw.
Marva.
Marva,
Marva
yes.
Andor.
I mean, again, Fiona Shaw, you know,
Yes.
obviously well known for Harry Potter, Killing Eve, you know, My Left Foot, all sorts of stuff, you know, absolutely fantastic in this. But again, you know, why, what exactly were they doing? You know, they were, I'm guessing they were looting, were they?
They
Salvaging
were.
from that
Yeah.
vessel.
Did they shoot it down? Were they did they cause the accidents?
Right.
You know, they're scavengers, but actually, are they more than that? You know, yeah. I
Mm.
wonder if we will get her story told in full. Maybe it's
Yes.
a good hypothesis there. But yeah,
Yeah.
no. You know, again, you mentioned Fiona Shaw there, but you know, the acting is absolutely top draw from
Yes.
everyone. You really, you know, back to how I view the better part of Star Wars is that I feel it, you know, and you know, I'm passionate about, even though I don't memorize everything. It's a case of, you know, there's a lot of emotion here, a lot of great characters. Um, you know, some tropes we've seen before, but you know, familiar tropes where what we've seen in other stories before, but all melded in. And by that I mean, you know, we've seen the you know, downtrodden community all being you know, quite secretive and working together. Okay, but again, it's worked well here. We've seen the, you know, the jealous lover betraying who she is jealous of. So yeah, there's a few familiar tropes, but you can't tell a story without them, right?
No, exactly, exactly. And one thing in terms of attention to detail that I noticed. So here I've got the Rogue One visual guide because I was a big fan of Rogue One, and these type of things are good to sort of flesh out story and character and bits and pieces. But it's quite interesting because they've got a profile on Cassian Andor in it. Okay, and you know, these things aren't canon as such. Yeah, they're done by the story group at Lucasfilm or whatever. But what I thought was quite interesting is it says that Cassian Andor was from the world known as Fest, right? So of course, when they showed Canary at the beginning, I thought, oh yeah, well they just retcon that because they do that in these shows, and they sort of pick and choose and, you know, write their own canon and all this. But what I thought was amazing was in the second episode, I think, when they got the hologram up of Andor, and they were saying,
Yeah.
you know, that they were looking for a Canary, or somebody from Canary with dark features and all of this sort of thing. And Fiona Shaw's character says, you know, hold on, we've told everyone you're from Fest. Who have you told that you're from Canary? And I thought to myself, wow, attention to detail. They actually went and used the planet that they named in that book in the script. And I just thought, I love stuff like that because it's those silly little things that just make the world feel that bit more real. So
Complete. Yes.
so I geeked a little bit at that. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And but yeah, acting, the tonality of this,
Yeah,
direct.
the tone, the colours, colours of it are something special. I read comics, as you know, and some of the more modern comics, depending on artists, that they'll have some flourishes. But I read a comic a few years ago, well, in the last decade anyway, called Copperhead, and
Okay.
that one was in a mining on a mining planet, and it was more Western with a new sheriff in town, etc., etc. But the
Hmm.
tones of that, there's lots of oranges. It wasn't a desert planet, but it was a kind of a rundown planet, if you like, as we're seeing here, or we've seen the last three episodes anyway. So it just reminded me of that, just the tones, you know, even the buses, the funny flying buses that take them into town. They're more of a vanilla and soft red color, but a bit worn and beaten down, and
Yes.
all of that again is just something, for me anyway, is unique, and it can blend. it's sort of blending more into Rogue One in its look and feel, but less shiny, of course. So I'm loving that. And if you noticed, also, it's the usual with good music. It's always on repeat that you pick up on the music, and it's quite in some sequences. The music is actually quite relentless, but it just helps with what you're seeing in the drama there as well. Because I went back to it and went, actually, this is excellent. Unfortunately, not available just yet. You know how I am with film music too, but yeah, even that is really helping us. And it's also not John Williams-esque, which has always been Star Wars, hasn't it? Rogue One,
Yes.
John Williams-esque tones and a feel to it, but this doesn't. This again is unique.
Yeah, I mean, this has a completely different. All of the creatives in the production on this are completely different to what we've had on the previous shows. So you've got Nicholas Britell is the composer on this one, and he's done things like Moonlight, If Beale Street Could Talk, Succession. So he's done a lot of different stuff. Cruella, the Underground Railroad. There's a lot of different. And you're right. Tonally, it's very different to what we've had. Yeah. Whereas the Williams, which is made such a contribution to not only Star Wars but movies in general in our lifetime. It was always that thing about having themes and being somewhat led and influenced by the music, whereas that seems less so far on this. I mean, I've only watched this the once, so I haven't sort of gone over it again and picked things out. But I presume there is an actual theme for Andor, yeah?
Yes, there is. Yeah, it's the one where we see right at the beginning, where we have this slow reveal of the really cool Andor writing, which is not for the first time. It's not Star Wars-esque.
Yes.
It's not the outline, is it? I was drawing it today, and because it's a lot more square, and obviously the O is not the silhouette of the other letters anyway. It's just the middle part of the O, but it's made up of D and R. So even for that, for the logo, we're going to have the t-shirts, we're going to buy the badges and all the rest of it. We are, and this is something that again is completely different. Even again, back to Rogue One, that's currently its older sister, if you like, and the story we're building up towards. That was very much Star Wars. This isn't, so maybe this is where Disney will take things now.
Yeah, I mean, I think from some of the trailer stuff that we've seen, we are going to see a bit more of the familiar, because I think we see like the Senate and whatever when we see Mon Mothma, and we see more Imperial stuff. So we see like some of the ships and some of the uniforms and the things that we're sort of familiar with there. But it was nice to have something that felt and looked very different, although in that world, like even B2, who's obviously going to be great for merchandising, because you're going to have the shiny version and the beat up version available, right? The two, but this is something different but familiar. It's different to an astromech droid that we've seen and we've seen many times, but has a it does feel like it belongs in the Star Wars world.
It does,
or the same. And
I do want to talk about some of the characters, though, because we talk about acting and the like, because it was the second episode where I needed. So for this one particular scene, I've now seen three times because I had to go back. Right. It was such a. It took me back, and it was such a surprise, because we've got this. He's not sniveling; he's just really uptight and really overtly keen. Again, that's why I mentioned that he's very imperial in his approach, which is the deputy inspector, right? He's been told, drop it, it's not important, but he's the one who really goes after.
Cyril Khan. Is that
Yeah.
the character, Cyril Khan?
Played by a researcher, played by
Kyle Sawyer.
Yeah, who's an Olivier Award-winning actor, theatre actor. You know, again, pedigree being brought into production here, right?
Well, I kind of, I don't know about you, but with him, I kind of got, there were two things going on. So I kind of got, on one hand, I got the sort of Les Mis kind of fugitive thing where he's going to be like the character pursuing Andor across the galaxy. You know, there's that kind of vibe. But likewise, when he was addressing the troops, it had a sort of Gorman from Aliens vibe to it, of a guy that's like completely out of his depth and quite cringe, and almost David Prentice.
That has been built up with what I'm building up to, because that wasn't the surprise.
Yeah,
that was okay. We've got another tropes here.
Yeah,
they're just using them. The trope that surprised me was the sergeant and his interaction, because he's asked to come in and he is straight off the bat wonderfully played, and I feel like the guy as well. He was in the Batman. He played one of the detectives, the one who was against the Batman recently, but that's for another time, I'm sure. He just is clipped. This is how we do it. This is bad, and he is so imperial, of the Empire. But he's just a proper bully sergeant. And if this guy carries on in Andor, I think he's going to be he's going to be a formidable foe. He's a proper villainous villain. I don't see the deputy inspector as so villainous. I think, yes, Gorman from Aliens, perfect. There he is. He's keen to do it. He's an officer. He's probably been to college or university to become an officer. He has no experience. This sergeant, has got experience, and this guy is the one who actually leads those troops in. He organizes everything, and this guy is willing to kill in a heartbeat as well. So that's why if he carries on, I hope he does. That was the biggest surprise. That was, of the 3 episodes, it was that one scene where the deputy inspector is cold meeting this guy and probably doesn't trust him until that mini speech, and you just see his face warming to him, and he says, yes, I've got the right guy here, but obviously he's bashed to one side by the sergeant, because he was just for me, he was one of the most formidable characters, surprise characters in this so far. And again, I really hope they carry on with him, because again, he could really mess things up for the goodies.
Yeah, I think that the actor's Alex Ferns.
That's it, yeah.
Played him, and it's Sergeant Kostek is the character. And you're right, he was in the Batman as well. Yeah.
But wonderfully played, and just again, so when you get, because a lot of the time in military movies, a sergeant will usually be the hero, because they do a lot of the work. They're the ones who really control the troops from officer orders. But in this one, this guy's got aspiration. He may want to climb the ladder, but I think he just wants to do his job and go in and hurt people and be in military situations. And then he was thriving there. Even with the reckoning, without all that noise, as I mentioned in the 3rd episode, he was in total control until things started blowing up. Yes.
By the way, I have to say, the first couple of episodes was obviously setting up the ensemble, the characters in this, and some of the backstory with the flashbacks, and what he's searching for, the fact he's searching for his little sister from those flashbacks, and all of this sort of thing. And some of I've heard already, even though I've avoided the reviews as such, but I've heard people use the term slow burn and whatever for the first couple. But I have to say, when it kicked into action mode, in the third episode. I thought again that was beautifully handled. I loved the whole thing with the after we got the MacGuffin out of the way, and he and Stellan talk about what he's really there for and all this, and then you have the troops attack, and you have the the chains and everything falling from the ceiling. That was amazing and had a real sort of kinetic energy to it.
It did, and we've got an absolutely knockout line now. We've almost like a catchphrase now with his mentorship. What was it? It was set up your exit on the way in.
Yes,
brilliant, great writing. We've got another one for the t-shirts.
You can tell it's written by the guy who did the Bourne films, right?
Yes. Great. It's in Star Wars now, right? Yes. We've got all these great lines from Han Solo. Another, he was a rogue, wasn't he? He was a one of moral ambiguities, but a big spectacular hero as he was. We've got some great lines. So if we can get some lines coming from this too, we're going to enjoy it even more.
Exactly. One of the things that did pull me out of it slightly, and again, I think I was just being too geeky here, but I had to actually stop it and put the closed caption subtitles on, because when they started speaking in the Canary language, amongst the children, I was like, should there be subtitles here? Am I missing? And I didn't want to miss anything, so I put it on.
I did the same.
Okay.
Did the same. Genuinely did the same. I was like, okay. And that's where I doubly realised then, they're treating us with intelligence. You don't have to. And it's again modern
the visual
writing.
storytelling.
You don't have to over-explain everything.
Yeah.
Just follow the action. Trust the storytellers. Trust the characters.
Yeah. Now the visual storytelling did it all. I mean, we got everything that we needed from that. But that did just make me stop, because I'm a bit, I was being a bit of a completist, and I was like, oh crap, am I missing some key info here? And that's how I found out, because it took me, I then got pulled into it, and it took me a while to turn the subtitles off again, because I was and that's where I think it mentioned about the Beskar metal or something. And
cool. Oh, a happy accident.
Yeah. So but all of that stuff worked. It was just, as I said, it pulled me out, because I was just expecting, we're normally drip fed that stuff, aren't we? Again, this is what sets it apart from maybe the Star Wars that, although we never knew what the Jawas were saying in A New Hope, did we? But we got
Jabba.
Yeah.
Either you usually had somebody speaking English back to us to kind of repeat back or whatever, just to help us along, but it's always been there.
Yes.
Most definitely, So we've got that to help us along, because you don't have to know precisely what everyone is saying. But no, happy accident there with the Beskar.
Yeah. No, it was a bit, but
But we've had again, all the characters I thought were really well fleshed out, because you also had Bix, who's the as I said, a strong female character there, but she is, and she's the tough one, the one who runs her own shop. Did you notice as well? And I deliberately put it into the synopsis earlier. Now again, not an uber geek where I memorize everything in Star Wars, but it's my first recollection, especially in this time period then, where they're referring to humans over, because you've always had droids, you've always had Wookiees, etc., other creatures, but maybe it's me in my memory. Get on of it. But they specifically mention humans to every human character in dialogue, not all the way through, of course, but at certain points, especially episode 1 and 2.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it may be on screen, yes, because as you know, I'm engraved in my memory are the audio dramas.
Yes.
And in the audio dramas, when 3PO and R2 arrive at the farm 3PO says to R2, I sincerely hope that's the end of that terminal sandcrawler journey. And R2 says something back. And then 3PO goes, oh, look, there are humans over there. Maybe they'll buy us and we'll get free of those awful Jawas, kind of thing. But whether or not it's been referred to on screen, that's a really good question.
Yeah, it was just one of those. It didn't take me out of it. It was just made me realise how we're always being told what creatures there are. For many, we don't need that so much anymore. It's always good to refer to, but to refer specifically to humans was it was just interesting. Maybe down to Gilroy's writing, not being an uber geek.
Okay,
An interesting thing that I'm sure that'll open up discussions across the World Wide Web.
They did it in the radio dramas quite a lot, because when Luke goes to sell the land speeder, the creature or the alien there says, "Oh, hello, humans. How can I help?"
But you can see here in radio and that there are no visuals.
Right. Yeah, no, that's true. By the way, Bix is played by Adria Ajoran. I want to pronounce that right. Arjona. I think it's pronounced Iona. Adria Iona. And her previous credits include True Detective, Six Underground, Morbius, Father of the Bride, the remake, Good Omens, the TV series, Emerald City. So she's done quite a bit of stuff. But yeah, excellent. I'm not sure what to make of her at the moment, which I like. It's one of these characters again that's just intriguing, and you think, oh, what's their backstory? Because it implies they sort of had a thing, but then you've got this boyfriend. Yeah.
The whole system mystery thing was something I dismissed eventually as we're going through, because when they see each other, then it's okay. No, it can't be. Or the secret is that she's been rescued too. Like a Luke and Leia not knowing each other as brother and sister. But again, I dismissed that eventually. But no, definitely a strong-willed one that's not paying lip service either. It's actually she's meant for that role. It's as if you've taken a character and gone, okay, let's make this character female. No, it fits the bill that she is, especially in a male-orientated world as well. You see most of the almost leaders or main characters around Ferrex are actually male there, but there's respect there. There's nobody questioning her authority, which is good. Just clear all that out of the way. We've got a great character here. Happens to be female and a good friend of Cassian's as well. I just see them as maybe gone through scrapes previously, and that's why they're buddies.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
Sure. That's interesting. And again, well acted and nicely introduced. I like the whole kind of thing in the scrapyard type environment, or the auto shop type environment. Yeah,
auto shop part. Yeah. All just massively proper as well, and all looks real. All that metal just lying around there, a lot of dust, but it not being Tatooine. Happy that this was more red dust than yellow dust this time, right?
Yeah.
My theory, yes, on Tatooine, right?
Okay.
Never thought about this today, because again we've been chatting lots and doing these as well, and we had to be in Tatooine for Obi-Wan, really. And I did have the Mandalorian, and of course Boba Fett too. So reason why? What if it's to do with the Force, right?
All right, yeah.
Who we see first, and as the main, there's this Skywalker saga after all over the 9 movies, is that Anakin is from Tatooine, and and yes, it's talking about his mother and Ms. Lawrence and all that nonsense, but he was drawn there. Okay, so you've got he's left, but you've got his brother's still there. Okay, maybe safe to have Luke there, but Luke actually thrives there too. There's all these. So I'm wondering if Tatooine is strong with the Force.
Interesting.
It may be this, this planet that is furthest away from the center of the galaxy, etc., etc. But actually, isn't that a great thing? We know certain things about Sith and how we have planets that are full of the dark side. We even have Yoda lives there.
Yeah, Dagobah.
Dagobah, you know that.
Yes.
And then you have patches in there that are strong with the dark side. What if Tatooine just is strong with the Force
and the light side?
Wars.
Because of its two suns, the light side. Sorry. All right, cool. Anything else that you want to mention or add? I mean, we've been going for over an hour and a half now. Obviously, there was a lot to cover because we had 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And a lot of characters already, with lots more to come, I feel, in the coming episodes now that they're off world.
No, just very much looking forward to it. It'll be a regular each week when it lands. I know it's it's a long series, this one, and to tell the tale. You mentioned slow burn. I said, yeah, good job they didn't have the first one for, I think, many people, because I think it may be too slow. It didn't end with a cliffhanger either. It's telling its own story. So we've got till November in this first, this dropping of episodes per week, and for me, it's going to absolutely be a feature of my week to pick up on it and watch and hopefully enjoy, and hopefully it remains as solid as it started.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's good to be excited about Star Wars again. That's not to say I haven't enjoyed the other shows.
The Mandalorian has been kick ass, and we've got the trailer for the Mandalorian now too.
Yeah,
Mandalorian season 3 is out there already.
Exactly, and I've enjoyed the Mandalorian. I enjoyed Obi-Wan for the most part. It was the Book of Boba Fett was the one that was the letdown for me. I just
it was inconsistent, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of
where he was going and what he was doing, really.
No, after a badass setup in the Mandalorian, it just I don't know. But anyway, not everything can be perfect. I'm going to take us off topic of Star Wars briefly, because I know, we talk, as I said, I'm behind on some of the Marvel shows now. And unfortunately, I didn't get to do, myself and Pete Mealy, we did one episode where we summed up the whole thing, but we didn't get to, because of Paramount Plus here in the UK, I never got to see and do an episode on Star Trek Strange New Worlds until the whole show had aired. And I say about being excited about Star Wars again, and I've got a similar thing with Star Trek because of Strange New Worlds. I wondered, have you managed to catch that yet?
Not yet, no. And for the reason why we started this episode is that there's so much content out there. That, as you know, but you haven't heard me say I've finished yet. I deliberately have been watching original series episode by episode by episode, as well as the other kind of other series out there. So when I finish the original series, so I'm just finished episode 10 of the 3rd season, then Strange New World, because here in the UK we have to pay extra. So I've already got 3 platforms.
I had the same thing.
But for Strange New Worlds, most definitely that is one it is high on the list. Once I get through original series, then I'll go into straight, because I think it'll be just too confusing with timelines. If I have to prequel where I'm at, because we've got enough prequels going on, right?
Well, again, a prequel of a prequel and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I've been up and down with a lot of Star Trek as well, newer Star Trek, and yeah, Strange New Worlds. But I'm gonna ruin your plans slightly, because my advice would be watch Enterprise before Strange New Worlds.
I've watched Enterprise. Maybe I need to have a
Okay.
refresher over Enterprise.
Because my view is, again, it's from a geeky canon point of view, and all this is, I try not to worry too much about Strange New Worlds being a prequel to the original series and everything that follows, but I try and think of it as being a sequel to Star Trek Enterprise.
Yeah, Star Trek Enterprise, as we know, ended abruptly. I, like you, loved Enterprise. Didn't understand why they cancelled it. Yes, they might have gone for ratings, but actually, I thought season 3. It was season 3 and then season 4, wasn't it? Because season 3 was the one story arc, and then just kicked off completely. Had some of the best episodes of Star Trek ever there. So okay.
But obviously as well, I mean, I say this, and a lot of the setup for Strange New Worlds is as a result of the second season of Star Trek Discovery as well.
Yes.
So,
which I did see,
which is the more problematic parts, in my opinion. It's kind of, it's like, okay, but yeah. Anyway,
no, I just want to go through and edit season 2 of Disco and only have the Pike scenes. You can throw the rest out completely.
Yes. Anyway, I realise we're on a Star Wars video stream talking about Star Trek, which
no crossovers just yet, as DC and Marvel can do.
No, exactly. So anyway, start to bring this to an end, but let's use the comm link. Now, is there anything, Graham, I know sometimes you're not too keen about promoting stuff, but I always want to give everybody the opportunity. Is there anything, or are you happy just working away on your stuff at the moment?
I am indeed, but I've been chipping away at my second draft of a novel, and I've signed up for the 2022 NaNoWriMo challenge. So that is to write 50,000 words in 1 month. So pretty much a draft of a short novel, really, and then boosting on from there. Doing that, getting more into my artwork as well, and bringing back some older stories and literally polishing them off too. So the thing that isn't a work in progress to promo, but when I have completed, obviously, I'll be more than happy to show off and tell the world.
No, that's great. I'm glad, you're doing your art, you're doing your writing, and you're saying F it, right?
Exactly that. For those who know and know the phrase, it's just, fuck it, do what you love.
I like it. Okay, well, if you've got this far, thank you for bearing with us this long. Hope you found this interesting. As I said, if you have, please do consider giving us a like, subscribing, and all of that sort of stuff. I'll also put some links if you want some related material. This is Home Media Minefield, where we talk about physical media, home media, that sort of thing. And I've got an episode where I go through the history of the Star Wars original trilogy on physical media. So please do check out that. Also, I've mentioned the radio dramas already on a couple of episodes, a couple of times in this episode. I have a really deep dive into the radio dramas with a pair of radio drama experts from the US, Professors John and Maria Jose Tenuto, who know absolutely everything there is to know about the Star Wars radio dramas. I learned from them, and I thought I knew everything. So check that out as well. Also, we've got episodes, as I've mentioned here, some of which Graham is on with me, where we've talked about the other Star Wars shows. We've talked about some Star Trek. We've talked about Marvel shows. We've talked about the Batman. We've talked about all sorts of things, film and television related. You can get in touch with us at lswotcast@gmail.com. So that's let's see what's out there cast@gmail.com. You can also follow us on all of the social medias. If you want to see some of my creative work, I've got another channel called British Isles. That's EYLES, as in my last name. And I've got an anthology of short films on there called the Urban Chiller Tales. So please check those out. And I'm currently working on a feature with my good friend Mike Tack called Car Cam. The music on my films and for this video stream is done by Neil Myers. Thank you to Neil, who's extremely talented. Please check out his work on neilmyersmusic.com. And something I promised I'd do for a friend of mine, friend of the channel, Ian David Diaz, the Mega Geek, has a film showing on Netflix at the moment called Bad Day, which thank you to Simon Aiken, friend of the channel, for that photo there, which features me. This was a film that Ian directed 15 years ago that I was fortunate enough to have a part in, a role in the film. It's actually screening on Netflix. If you have Netflix now and look up Bad Day, you can see this film. It stars Claire Goose and Donna Eyre, and it also starred the now late Sarah Harding in her first acting role. So it's almost good to be a tribute to her, because definitely someone so young and talented left us way too early. But yes, that is now available, and I promised Ian that I would make a mention of it. So I've been a good friend and done that, and he was a good friend for putting me in it. So there you go. Yeah,
another one on the long list, most definitely. Good to have seen, well, to see a feature of his after his Rebecca Gold series, which is the first series, which I enjoyed thoroughly on YouTube as well. I've said that to his face and to the wider public as well. So
yeah, and we're hopefully going into season 2 of that very soon as well. That's the plan, which excites me, because, as you know, I love to do acting whenever I can. So that's great. But anyway, enough of all that. Thank you, Graham, for joining me today to go through this and providing that wonderful overview of the 3 episodes, the epic that was the first 3 episodes. I'm definitely excited about the next 9 weeks, and going to try and have an episode out for each of those weeks. Hopefully I can get it out a bit quicker than this time, but it's just balancing it with everything else in life, as you well know. But yeah, if you made it this far, thank you for staying with us, and we shall see you next time on Let's See What's Out There. Bye for now. Bye-bye.
See ya.